Hello and welcome to the Run Testers. My name's Nick, and in this video we're going to be comparing the Asics Superblast and the Adidas Adizero Prime X2 Strung. So the Prime X2 and the Superblast are two very expensive, very high stack shoes that really can do a little bit of everything, but they're very much examples of modern shoes and of all the tech they pack into the midsoles, and indeed the very high prices you have here, which is £195 or $200 for the Superblast, or £250 or $300 for the Prime X2 Strung. Very hard to say those prices without wincing a little bit. Superblast is a lighter shoe. It weighs 251 grams or 8.8 ounces in my UK size 9, whereas the Prime X2 is 313 grams or 11 ounces in my UK 9. Superblast has an 8mm drop and the stack height is 45.5mm at the heel and 37.5 at the forefoot. The Prime X2 has a 6.5mm drop, the stack height is 50mm at the heel, 43.5mm at the forefoot. So the Prime X2 is billed as a racing shoe from Adidas with all the tech they've got in the midsole here. You can see why. You've got 3 layers of the brand's Light Strike Pro foam. That's the best foam they have in the lineup. It's used on the Adidas Pro 3. So you've got those 3 layers of Light Strike Pro and they sandwich 2 carbon plates in the midsole. You've got a few cutouts in the bottom of the shoe there that show off some of the tech, but notably the medial side has been filled in a bit more with the Prime X2 to make it a bit more stable than the original shoe. And generally we've got quite a wide base compared to the first version of the shoe, again with stability in mind. You've got this continental rubber outsole with pretty good coverage there. The whole forefoot's covered, 2 strips at the back, not a lot of exposed foam. And then the strung upper, which is layered yarns and a new booty style fit on the shoe compared to the first version. You basically have that sock style tongue that hugs the foot rather than a separate tongue. A little bit of padding around the heel, but overall it's fairly lightweight on top with the quite considerable weight of the shoe packed into the midsole. The Superblast has a dual density midsole with a big thick layer of Asics' FF Turbo foam, which is the same foam used in things like the Metaspeed racing shoes. Then you've got a smaller layer of FF Blast Plus on the bottom there, just to give a slightly more durable bottom to the shoe. You've got sidewalls of foam, an internal heel counter, which you don't really have on the Prime X, and a really wide base here to encourage stability with that high stack of a fairly soft and bouncy foam in the midsole there. You've got a mesh upper with a bit more padding around the back than you get on the Prime X2, though it's still quite lightweight up top. Then you've got AHA Plus rubber used on the outsole. It's used fairly sparingly. They have covered the key impact areas, but you are getting better coverage actually with the Adidas shoe, although the exposed foam you see here is the FF Blast Plus, which, like I say, is a bit more hardy than the FF Turbo used in the rest of the midsole. All right then, Tom has entered the fray now to talk about fit. Tom, how about the fit of these shoes?
Superblast I've been wearing for a very long time. I think it's a very comfortable shoe.
Always goes on about how long he's had it, every time.
Yeah, well, I'm really proud of the length of time I've had this shoe. I would say the Superblast is a very comfortable shoe. It has the feel of I suppose it's like a max cushion shoe in some respects, and for me it does feel like that. It's like nicely plush inside. I'm a size 8 in the UK. This is a size 8. It fits me perfectly. There's plenty of space in the forefoot for me. It's not the widest shoe, but it's definitely not a narrow shoe. I would stay to my size in this. I think it's very comfortable. The Adidas. Now I had some major issues with the first version of this. And I know that Adidas are generally slightly smaller than other shoes. So I think I probably should have gone up half size in the first version. With this though, I'm still a size 8 in this and I haven't had any issues with it at all. There's not loads of space in the forefoot, so for some people they might need to go up half size, but I was completely fine with it. I found it very comfortable and I much prefer this upper with this sort of sock section on it to the original version.
Yeah, I've got my usual size in both in the UK, which is UK 9. In Adidas, I see US 9.5. It's a 10 in the Asics of the US, which is probably why Adidas often feels a bit small because they're always a 9.5. Superblast, no concerns at all, really comfortable fit, roomy toe box. Adidas sometimes comes up a bit narrow and short in the UK 9 for me, but it's never that bad, and this is a roomy shoe. Like you say, Tom says it, I think it has a fit similar to something like the Gel Nimbus almost, despite the fact it is a fast shoe. So yeah, no concerns there. I did not love the fit of the Prime X Strung 1, which ripped my heel to pieces. Didn't actually feel like it locked down tight enough, given that it's such a big stack of foam, you're going to run fast in it. I think it's much improved with the Prime X2. I prefer this socky booty thing here as well. I've got a good lockdown around the midfoot, no heel rub in this shoe. It generally feels a bit more dialed in, even though the lacing system looks a bit suspect for a big high stack bouncy shoe like this that you're going to run quick in. So I was really happy in my normal size. Yeah, it's not a small shoe like Adidas. Well, if I get my normal UK size, sometimes it'll be small and I'll need to size up, like the Adidas Pro 3 with the Prime X2. I was very happy in my normal UK size. Right, on to the run test. Let's start by talking about the Superblast, Tom, since you've had it such a long time, apparently.
Oh, I've had it for ages. Glad you mentioned it. Love the Superblast. I just think it's a fantastic all-rounder that does a lot of things. It is really comfortable. You can use it for easy runs. It does it very well, but also it's quite. You can use it faster as well. You can really pick up the pace. I've used it for quite a lot of my tempo training when I was training for Berlin. And I think the thing about it is it's even though it's like a big stack of midsole foam, it's quite a it's not firm foam, but the actual structure of the shoe is quite firm. So you get a nice pop off when you run. So if you're picking up the pace and you're running at speed, it really does a nice job of that. I just think it's a really solid, fast. It's not the lightest shoe in the world, but it's a light shoe for what it looks like and how it performs. So I think it's a great shoe, versatile.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's got a certain stiffness to it, which does help with the pace. And I was mooching around in it a bit today. I also use it as my walking around shoe everywhere because it's so comfortable. And I think you get a lot more of the bounce when you start running fast. I think if you're just going around at easy paces, it's comfortable, but it doesn't feel very, very, very springy at all, but it does have a stiffness to it that rolls through okay. And then it has got a lot more pace than you might expect for a big slab of foam with no plate or anything in it. It's still quite stable despite the fact it hasn't got any plate in it, I find. So you can do a bit of everything. Like I've gone down the track and done fast reps in this shoe. I've done a really hard punishing road session in this shoe where I would normally use a carbon shoe and it performed pretty well. I think all round it's a pretty spectacular all round shoe. It does do a bit of everything. It's a nice option for easy runs, though some people might prefer a less stiff feeling on those runs. But yeah, a really good shoe all round. And then obviously the Prime X2 is billed a bit more as a racing shoe. I personally view it more as a super trainer. I think it works really well as a super trainer rather than an all-out racer because it's quite heavy. But Tom, Prime X2, what are your thoughts?
Well, the first thing you say about the Prime X2 is that it is really heavy. I'm just holding it here, and it just feels like a ridiculously heavy shoe. If you gave me this shoe and I didn't know anything about it, I wouldn't think it was a fast running shoe. But the build of all the sort of technical bits in the midsole, there's like 3 layers of midsole foam. Is there 2 plates in it? 2 plates. It does, despite that weight, it feels really fast when you're out running in it. I've done a couple of park runs in this, and I wasn't even going for a PB, but I've got very close to my PB, which is not what you'd expect from a shoe that's this heavy. I really like this shoe. I think the sweet spot for it is those longer tempo runs where you need to maintain a consistent pace, and it's very nice at doing that. It just cruises you through my tempo pace is like 4:05 kilometers, and I was doing that a lot over the past couple of months for marathon training, and I found the shoe just worked perfectly for it. I just could lock in, keep at that pace, and the shoe just felt really just enjoyable and just energetic and nice. And I think with the original version of it, I got that same feeling, but it just felt a little bit, I keep moaning about it being a little bit wobbly and a little bit unstable, but it was really unstable. But I think with this one, it just feels less energetic, but more cruisy for me.
I always get more bounce from the Prime X2 than the Prime X1, which I think is a faster shoe. Like I said, it's a bit wobbly. It's a shoe that I don't find unstable when I'm running in good, flat conditions like the track or a fast stretch of road, but it's not one I just take out everywhere. The Prime X2, I do think you can take out pretty much everywhere. It's stable enough to just go around your local pavements, which, I don't know, everywhere in London to me seems like they're a bit rooty. There's people there, they're a bit uneven, nothing's that well maintained. But I do think it's spectacularly bouncy. It's probably the bounciest shoe out there. It feels really good at loads of different paces. I certainly think so I do a lot of kind of easy to steady runs in my daily training, just progressing from around 4:30 a k down to around kind of 3:35, 3:40 a k, and it just ticks off all those paces really well. That's just down to just the top of my marathon pace, and I think it's a good marathon pace shoe certainly, and a good tempo shoe, like you say. I think it doesn't necessarily feel great at all out paces just because it is a big shoe to try and turn your legs over in, but it's certainly got the bounce for it, and it feels like the flight time in the shoe is just massive because it is so bouncy. And actually the weight doesn't come into play that much. Actually, I did a little poodle around in both shoes earlier just to kind of see how they feel, and I don't really notice the difference in weight that much, even though this is like 75 grams heavier in my size, the Prime X compared to the Superblast. It doesn't feel that because it is so bouncy, and it feels a lot bouncier than the Superblast actually at slow paces, I found. But then when you start running fast, the Superblast gets bouncier, and the Prime X does as well, but they have a slightly more even feel. But I think where it might have a little edge compared to Superblast is not necessarily all-out speed, but holding a speed over the long distances is where the plates, I think, come in a bit, which you don't have on the Superblast. It's still quick, it's nimble, you can hold good paces in it, it's great for that, but I think you get a little bit more punch from the Prime X2 because of the extra tech in the midsole here.
Yeah, my only thought on this, because I've only got I've probably done about 18 miles in this in training. I think I might use it for Abingdon next weekend because I'm not going to be racing Abingdon. And my concern is that it does feel really good up to the distances that I've done, but I'm just worried that weight is actually going to become noticeable in the latter stages of a marathon.
Yeah. When your feet and legs are tired, picking it up. I mean, we had both of the same feeling, I think, with the Super Comp trainer from New Balance, the first version of that, which is amazingly bouncy, but start to drag a bit over 20 miles. But I don't know, I don't really have that feel issue. It's got a more aggressive setup as well in terms of things like the geometry compared to the Superblast, which is built a bit more like a daily trainer in the way it lines up. I think Adidas were still pitching this as a racing shoe, even though I think it works better as a trainer. But yeah, I do think you get a bit more punch from it. It's a little bit wobblier than the Superblast. It is a more stable shoe, the Superblast, certainly. I'd say it's got a wider base and all that, but hasn't been a big problem for me with the Prime X. So I wouldn't necessarily view that as a massive concern, but it's certainly not a very stable shoe. On to the verdict then, Tom. We've got two exaggeratedly high shoes here with exaggeratedly high prices as well. Which one would you go for, and what would you use it for, I guess, as well?
Yeah, so I think these are two very expensive shoes, and if we did this versus or our versus with one of these shoes and another shoe, the chances are that I would always say I might want one of these shoes, but I'd end up buying the other one because the price of these is ridiculous. But these are in a pretty similar price bracket, although obviously the Prime X is another 50 quid on top of the Superblast. Even then, the Superblast is expensive. I would say if we took the price out of the equation, I would probably go for the Prime X at the moment, just because I think it, even though they're both versatile shoes, even though you can do faster stuff in the Superblast, I think I'd rather pick up the Prime X2 for those tempo runs that I was talking about, and those faster efforts. Just thinks it's got a little bit more to it, and it's you can really pick up the pace quite a bit in it. What you can in the Superblast is just not as much for me.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think that's probably where I am as well. I think it's really hard to call because I do like the Superblast so much, and I still have this like worry of the Prime X2. It just doesn't keep you honest. Like cruising through daily training just feels almost too easy. Like my heart rate's not moving up enough as it should. But I suppose the price difference in the UK is about 50 quid. It's about $100 in the US, and that is a substantial price rise. The Superblast, because I wasn't using either of these shoes as a racing shoe, I don't think they're fast enough. Obviously, they're illegally high stacked, but I just don't think they're as fast as the racing shoes I use, like the Vaporfly 3, which is so much lighter and nippier than them. So if I'm using them as a training shoe, I would save the money because the Superblast is a brilliant training shoe, does everything really well, and I'd rather have the cheaper shoe from these two. Like you, Tom, I probably would then say, well, save the money even more and go and pick up the Endorphin Speed or the Adidas Boston 12. But picking between them, it is a big saving and it is a fantastic experience running the Superblast. Money out of the equation, I do think you get a better experience from the Prime X2. It's a phenomenally bouncy shoe. I know people kind of have a bit of a negative look at it compared to the Prime X1, which is that more exciting, faster shoe. But I do think this is the better training option because it's got the stability, it's got the just generally better fit on the upper. I mean, the Prime X1 is coloured for me because it ripped my heel to shreds every time I tried to run it. But the Prime X2 is just so much fun to run in, and it is bouncier than the Superblast for kind of cruising paces. Fast paces, not too much in them, but yeah, it's a bit of a toss-up. You've got the plates here, which will help you hold good paces over long distances. The Superblast is a lot lighter, which, as someone like me who's got high cadence, turns over their feet over quite high, isn't necessarily a big bounding runner, will feel less bounce later on in a run, and probably just have the lighter shoe. But even then, I still think the Prime X2 is a bit quicker. So yeah, the money's no option. I'd probably pick up the Prime X2, but given the saving, the Superblast is such a good shoe, I'd probably get the Superblast.
I agree.